So good evening. My name is Amy Good. I'm the program manager here for the Community Education Center for Elk and Cameron counties. Through my Discover Partnership program, I assist students and adults with career exploration and planning. A little over 4 years ago, I was in your same position as my daughter was a senior in high school and heading off to college. And after filling out our FAFSA and getting our estimated college costs, we were shocked when we got that first college bill in July, showing an amount due that was larger than we had anticipated. And that is why I created this program. I want to provide you with information that will help you find those scholarships to help alleviate those college costs. So our agenda tonight, we're going to start with PHEAA, who will give us an overview of scholarships. Then the Elk County Community Foundation will share local scholarships that are available to you. Then the Northern PA Regional College is going to share their local programs for those of you who may be short on funds and looking for affordable programs. And then I'm going to finish off with a few tips on filling out those scholarship applications and writing your essay. So at this time, I'm going to throw the program over to Marian Hargrave. She is the PHEAA Access Partner for our region.
All right. Thanks very much, Amy. Let me attempt to, and hi, everybody. Thanks for having me be a part of this program. I hope the information is helpful to you. And of course, I look forward to any questions or comments afterwards. So, Amy, I'm going to try and share my screen. All right. So, note to everyone, don't panic. When in doubt, just don't panic. So for those of you attending, sorry for the delay and thanks for your patience. My name is Marian Hargrave. I work for the Pennsylvania Higher Education Assistance Agency, and my email address is showing there. It's just my first and last name @PHEAA.org. And I am happy to address any questions along the way that you may have. I assume that most of you are senior families, but we may have some junior families out there. So certainly this information is more urgent for senior families, but for junior families, it gives you a good opportunity to be prepared for this time next year. Because this is what this time next year is probably going to look like for you in theory, right? You are going to see your students' tuition and fees and housing, and what you want to do if they're headed off to a four-year school is multiply that by 4. In this case, we get a grand total of about $157,000, which is a lot of money and probably more than most of us can imagine. Now, having said that's for 4 years, that does presume that if your student is headed off to a 4-year higher education, that they actually succeed and complete it in 4 years. Because if they do not, then that bill obviously is going to be higher. Also, having said that, if your student is looking at a 2-year school, or a technical or business, or a nursing school even, the cost may not be this high, but certainly for most of us, the cost of higher education, relatively speaking, is higher than we can afford. Now, with that in mind, consider that students or people who have achieved higher education in any shape or form tend to suffer less unemployment. So what this graph that you're looking at will show you is the green shows you that, well, let me go back and say, it begins with the high school diploma or less than a high school diploma from the bottom up and goes all the way to a doctoral degree. And you can see that as a person ascends to the higher degrees, they suffer less unemployment throughout their career. And then the flip side of that, on the green bars, you see their actual weekly earnings. Now, this isn't always true. I mean, you could expect that an attorney is going to make more than a lot of us. A physician is going to make more than a lot of us. But that shouldn't short sell the trade areas or manufacturing areas, because if you've got one ambitious and good, skilled worker in those fields, they could transcend those average wages that you might expect without a high degree of formal education other than their technical training. So I don't want to discount any type of education, but the point is that it certainly is an investment, right? And this speaks again to earnings by education level. But I think all of us would agree that we know a lot of highly educated people that we wouldn't follow to the restroom. So that's really no direct correlation to necessarily intelligence. But we also know some folks who may not have a professional degree that we would follow anywhere. So again, I don't want to discount any sort of level of education, but do know that any of it is quite an investment. Now, before I move on to true scholarship information, I thought we should look at what a lot of senior families, starting pretty soon, early spring, will begin to see, and those are award letters from colleges. So this is a sample award letter where right in the middle there, you see that the cost of attendance is almost $62,000. And this award letter shows how that's itemized. If you look below that blue bar in the middle there, you'll see tuition costs, fees, housing, food plans, and then what colleges call indirect costs, which are the things, folks, that come out of our pocket that you sort of need to pay in order to get to class every day. So books, supplies, transportation, living expenses. So that's pretty straightforward. Now, up at the top, what this award letter shows, very first arrow that you see is in green, that this student is going to receive a total of $31,000 in a scholarship. So right off the bat, from that almost $62,000, and these are annual costs, by the way, right off the bat, this school is going to knock off $31,000, right? And then the rest of, and this is in that first box under financial aid, the rest of that box describes the federal Pell Grant and the amount of that, something called an FSEOG and the amount of that. But then if you look at where I have that yellow arrow, it shows that this award letter includes loans. And it includes that under the section of financial aid. And I just want to draw your attention to that because that's not necessarily bad. And most students and usually their parents need to take out some sort of loan to cover their school costs. It's just that they are oftentimes wrapped into an award letter. And so keep in mind that when you see loans on an award letter, that's still money that you have to pay. Maybe not today, right? But at some point. So in the end, what this sample award letter shows is that this student's total estimated balance is still $21,000. So, and that's what you see in that red circle. So, cute dog, $21,000, almost 22. And that includes all of their financial aid that they're eligible for, a whopping $31,000 scholarships and loans. So how can we offset that almost $22,000? I'll answer that in 1 second, but very quickly, I do want to show you an actual award letter. This is from Westchester University over on the eastern side of Pennsylvania. This award notification also shows, that first yellow arrow shows the direct student loan that they'll need to take, right? They also show the state grant award. And this award notification is divided by semesters, right? So what you see is disbursement by term. So 1 term and then the second term, whoops. And then this is the second page of that same award letter. I'm only showing you this because it's an example of the unmet need. That amount that's circled in red is far smaller This is a state institution, right? So it costs less to begin with. But you didn't see any scholarships on this notification. And so the cost of the school minus the aid that is offered, which is about $18,000, still leaves a balance with those loans of about $8,800. So my point being is those amounts usually need to be offset. Since loans are already taken into consideration, how can you meet that unmet need? In these two examples, one was almost $28,000 and this one is almost $9,000, right? Most of us do not have that out of pocket. So that's where we really want to try to get other people to pay, right? Most parents, most students cannot afford those costs without some outside help. And that's really the real value of scholarships. Students, when they achieve scholarships, whether it's one biggie or 10 little ones or anything in between, it doesn't matter, that reduces that amount of out-of-pocket costs from both students and parents, right? And therefore, since most students or parents don't have those out-of-pocket costs to begin with, it reduces the cost of loans and the indebtedness of students and parents, right? So in a lot of cases, when students achieve scholarships, it can make their first choice or gotta have school a possibility rather than a school that they have to attend because that's the only thing they truly, truly can afford. A lot of times when that happens and it's a really awful choice in the student's view, they don't perform well, right? And so you think, well, let's just put up with this. You might tell your student, let's just put up with this for a little while. And a lot of students who don't understand or don't just really are not a good fit for the school that they have to go to, they simply just end up doing poorly. And now you have a bill for an unfinished college pursuit, which is the worst thing because then students don't have the skills or the credentials and they have a whopping bill. The other true value or real value of scholarships is that it really does demonstrate a student's ambition, their determination to go through the process of obtaining scholarships. It's not easy. Parents, I would liken it to anytime any of us are trying to get a new job. You kind of have to, it's like training. You kind of have to get yourself in a mode or a mindset where you sit down every day and you dedicate the time to it and you keep your information organized and you follow up. That might be a little bit easier for us as adults, but when students can have the discipline to do that, it really does say a lot about them. It also demonstrates the students' ownership of their future. They have a vested interest when they have scholarships that they can apply to their school costs. A lot of times when a student has some sense that they're paying or had to work so hard to attend classes, that they're paying for or had to work so hard to attend classes, they really get upset when the professor shows up late once in a while. Or they get upset when the class doesn't, it ends abruptly because the faculty member has to do something else. Because that truly should mean, they are understanding they're paying for that. And all of those things are just great traits to succeed in higher education. A student does not have to be the number one student in a class to do well in higher ed. And when I say higher ed, again, I'll remind you, I mean 2-year schools, 4-year schools, training programs, nursing programs, business programs, whatever it might be. But those are great traits to really succeed. And then what I didn't really articulate here in this slide, but when students demonstrate all those characteristics, those are what, and they achieve scholarships. That's what they want to emphasize and make some hay about on their resumes, right? And say, when I went to school, I worked my way through, yes, but I also achieved all of these scholarships. People who've been through education know what that means and know how hard that is. So the types of scholarships that exist, I want to be mindful of my time, really boil down to these 3 categories in a main way. First, there are scholarships available through the schools and the training programs or whatever that a student might be attending. And so they want to check with their admissions or financial aid offices to see what's available. And they want to have an understanding of their deadlines for each of the programs that they're looking into for scholarships. Keep in mind, this is a reminder that scholarships for higher education are not just for prospective freshmen, returning sophomores, juniors, seniors, or returning second-year students, whatever it might be, also should be looking for scholarships from their schools. And a lot of times those are more plentiful than what is available to freshmen. Also, students would want to look at, obviously tonight, we're going to talk about that with the foundation, but Pennsylvania state and local and regional scholarships. And the first step would be availing yourself to programs like this to get an understanding of what you could find locally. School counselors and the guidance office provides information. And then students, I would encourage you to get in touch maybe with what you consider your parents' organizations, like credit unions, wherever you may worship, organizations that your parents or even students are involved in, and parent and also student employers may offer some opportunities that you might overlook. Also labor unions, you know, Kiwanis, the Elks Club, the Moose, etc. Any types of those affiliations. And also there's a great website. I have the link there, and I know you'll be able to see that down the road. We have this recording, but really just simply do a scholarship search or Google Pennsylvania government scholarships, and you will find there are plenty, and they come out of our legislative offices. Doesn't matter what your political affiliation is per se, but students, you definitely want to look into those. And then, of course, finally, national scholarships. And national scholarships, meaning that these are scholarships availed to students all across the United States, which makes them very competitive most of the time. But there's something that students should look into. So corporate websites like Target or Walmart, Taco Bell, etc. Students should look just to see and throw your hat in the ring to see if you're eligible for anything there. And again, it's good to be competitive and give it a shot. Now, I kind of alluded to it, but students do not have to be perfect students in order to get a scholarships. So academic criteria certainly is one that we all think of right off the bat with scholarships, but there are scholarships offered based on students' interests, their hobbies, where they're from, their high school, their race, their religion, ethnicity, what major they're planning on, their career choices. I like to really concentrate on things like leadership and activities that students are involved in. Athletics, probably second to academics, is what we think of oftentimes. So of course, that's a criteria as well. But the point here, or the focus, is that students do not have to, we would like them to be, but they do not have to be perfect academic students to look for scholarships. And these are some goofy ones that I found that are legitimate, and they are exactly what they look like. If you're tall, and the criteria for this one is if you're at least 6'5" if you're a guy, and I think it was 5'10" if you're a girl. You could look to the Tall Club's International Student Scholarships. Now these are national, so they are competitive, but just to give you an idea of some of the crazy ones. Duct tape, right? We all know about duct tape, and lately in the last several years, kids are getting kind of creative, which is great, using different colored duct tape to make things. Well, duct tape every year has a Stuck at Prom scholarship contest, where if the attendees I say couple, but I mean couple, however that might be, if they wear outfits that are made from duct tape, they could enter into this contest for a $10,000 scholarship. The doodle for Google is another one. We open up and we go to Google, we see some artwork. So that's a contest for students every year to get your artwork for the Doodle homepage or the Google homepage. And that's a $30,000 scholarship, and so on. The last two, the fitness scholarship is exactly what it sounds like for a student pursuing a fitness goal at the college level, and also create a greeting card. But if you look at those amounts, that's not bad. Now, I don't want to overlook that the military does have funding opportunities. And so students who might think that that's a match for them is to pursue some involvement with the military. I certainly would encourage that they explore that. I'm no expert in all of the branches by no means, and all of them have very specific incentives and types of scholarships. All of them have, except for the Navy and the Air Force, have college fund programs. So it's worth looking into. And I would just encourage students to go to a website called studentaid.gov. They can look up the specific military programs available to them. Finally, ROTC, Reserve Officer Training Corps, is a program at a lot of colleges that a student can pursue while they're in school to prepare them for continued military involvement, if they choose to. But if they participate in ROTC, they also receive stipends, and that's, you may not want to consider that a scholarship, but it is money that will help a student pursue higher education. So certainly look into that. So a couple things I just want to address. Yes, there are scholarships for students that they can apply to before their senior year. There's actually scholarships that are available to middle school students. And that simply means that that money is more or less held in escrow or held for them at the point that they want to contribute it for a scholarship. So really, when you ask the question, well, when should I start looking for scholarships? I don't care really almost what your age or grade level is. You should start looking now, whatever that might be. And again, if you're a senior family out there, definitely now, for sure. Some scholarships criteria some scholarships do require in their conditions that an applicant or applicants are attending college right after high school graduation. I think that was important to bring up because I know with the uncertainty, certainly right now, about how colleges might be delivering their coursework next fall, for example, because of COVID and just online opportunities. Some students are waiting a year just to see how that goes. They don't want to spend the money for not being on a campus. But do keep in mind that some scholarships require that students are going to college right after high school. And so if that's the case, those are eliminated. There are also scholarships for graduate education. So for students planning to earn a master's degree or some type of graduate degree or professional degree, there's definitely scholarships for those. And that's something that you want to look at while you're involved in a bachelor's degree and planning ahead for those. Keep in mind, just on a financial aid note, loans are all that a student could get after the bachelor's degree is earned. So a scholarship for any higher level education after a bachelor's degree is really going to be helpful. I talked about scholarships available after the first year. And again, schools do oftentimes offer more for returning students. So a couple of steps for a successful scholarship search is to start early and continue to explore. Organize your options. Just like I said, those of us who've had to look for a job, You know, you organize your resume, all your prospective employers, everything you sent them, the dates, etc. You want to do the same thing for scholarship searches. Make a spreadsheet, start a file, keep it organized. Don't exclude students, don't exclude small dollar awards. But if you get a $500 award here, $1,000 here, you start stacking those and you're talking about, well, now you're making a dent in that, you know, that gap. When you apply, be sure to provide all the required information. Otherwise, just like a job search, if you in your file, you know, your scholarship opportunity is probably going to be lost. Don't miss deadlines. And then once you've done all that stuff, just repeat it. Search for scholarships every year. As an aside, always, students, follow through with a thank you to the scholarship organization that awarded you any funding. Consider that that's not just an organization, but a number of donors that have made that award possible for you. So that thank you goes a long way. And it's social grace, but it's really something that's important for scholarships. So folks will ask me, you know, what are legitimate scholarship search engines? There are a lot of them, a lot of them. And PHEAA really, and I'm not affiliated with any of these, and I'm not endorsing any of these, but I can tell you that what you see here on this screen are all legitimate websites, and they are productive. So any one of these or all of these is where a student should go to looking. And then also I would recommend that students just simply Google by subject, Pennsylvania scholarships, biology scholarships, you know, and start to filter from there. I will tell you that I did that search in preparation for today, and I put in PA scholarships in my Google search, and I got physician's assistants scholarships. So, and I started to look at that and I thought, boy, this list looks a little strange. So just keep in mind that I know we're all from Pennsylvania and we're used to saying PA, but the rest of the world might not be. So it's best to just spell out the state. So scholarships generally will require an essay and references, and these are two things that students need to provide. And this is part of the work that students really have to complete. But I'll tell you what, for an essay, if a student simply creates a template to work off of, just a basic essay that maybe you started for your first scholarship, and then you can add to it for the rest of them that you apply to, that can make the job so much easier. You know, you have the luxury of cut and paste. So use it. I would just say that be sure that you always have the correct address and names associated, because if you continuously recycle things, you might get careless. So you don't want to send an essay to Shippensburg University that you created for Edinburgh and didn't change the name. Scholarship essay questions are usually pretty generic. How have you contributed to your community? What have you learned? Discuss a challenge you have faced and how you've overcome it. And because they're kind of generic a lot of times, but not unimportant, just very generic, that's what makes a template all that much easier to do. As far as references, students, don't be afraid to ask your folks around you for their support. Your teachers, your counselors, your community members, people who have been through this that maybe you admire, maybe who are pursuing the career that you want. Sometimes you'll get a really good reference from a teacher that you didn't have such a great relationship with because maybe they saw something in you that you don't want to see. And that makes for a good reference sometimes. Make sure to compare those references with what you're asking them for. You know, tell them the name of the scholarships, what you need to submit and when, and give them enough time to help you. And then also keep them up to date. What I didn't say here is, certainly don't put a reference down for somebody you didn't ask permission of. But having said that, it's just nice to work with those references while you're working on this process. And just like with achieving scholarships, always send a thank you to your references and anyone else who's helped you achieve these scholarships. Goes a long way. Now, there are signs of scholarship scams. Those would be if you're asked to pay a fee, if you have to give credit information, if you didn't have to do anything or very little to apply for one. Any scholarship that says your guarantee is probably bogus. And also if the contact information does not include a real address from the scholarship organization. So it's not like you can go back and double check to see, is there a physical address for this company, so they say they are, or organization. Also, if you've never done anything to apply for a scholarship and they're telling you that you must go in and claim it, you have to attend a seminar. Usually that's just hard sell. Sometimes you'll see something that looks official and uses words like national or federal, but keep an eye on those and look for offers or information that's filled with typos and spelling errors. You know, they might have your own name correct, but your address is completely butchered and you just have a good postman or postal service worker who got it to you. So keep aware of those. Note that when the student chooses a school choice, that school choice must be made aware of the outside scholarship funds, because a student cannot have something called an over award, which means that scholarship, in addition to other financial aid, the amount of those things would exceed the cost of attendance for the student, right? So the student cannot have a balance, but if they do, oftentimes some schools will apply those additional funds to the next semester. So the intention here is not to penalize a student who really was so good at getting scholarships that they exceeded their cost of attendance. It's not to penalize them, but a school wants to make sure that they spread the little resources that they have on their end to other needy students. And having a student bring in outside funding, you know, doesn't hurt that student. And it allows for the best efficient spending of money. So ask a financial aid staff about their policy regarding scholarships. Now, I don't want to overstep my time, but a lot of times when families are listening to this presentation, they want to know a little bit more about financial aid. So I'm just going to run through this very quickly. You know, keep in mind that the free application for federal student aid should be completed. And that is in the beginning October 1st of a student's senior year. And that form determines a student's eligibility for need-based aid. There is another product called the CSS Profile that's only used by about 17 schools in Pennsylvania. Students, if you're juniors or seniors and you don't know if the schools you're thinking about requires that, just look on their website. It will tell you that very clearly. And then the other type of financial aid would be through the Pennsylvania State Grant. And we also have special programs, but all of these programs offered through PHEAA or as the Pennsylvania State Grant aid require the FAFSA as well. So the FAFSA is pretty important. These are current amounts for federal financial aid on an annual basis. So if you're a senior right now, these amounts could change when you begin school in the fall. The Pell Grant is $6,300 per year. The FFEOG is $4,000 per year. And federal work study is determined by your school choice, but on average, it's around $2,000 to $2,500 a year. Now, if you add those amounts up, right, and you compare the cost of schools, these are helpful, but they do not go very far in covering the cost of most institutions. Again, I'm not saying that to discourage, but that's to emphasize the importance of scholarships. Bringing outside monies from whatever source you can is really helpful. For the Pennsylvania State Grant, the maximum award is about $4,500. When students go outside of Pennsylvania, they drastically reduce that amount, or they totally eliminate it, right? So again, when you total those annual amounts up, that's what makes scholarships so important. There are other state programs that PHEAA is involved with administering, and I would simply tell you to go to PHEAA.org. At the homepage, you will see other funding opportunities. Strongly encourage you to look those up. On the right side of your screen, those 3 italicized programs, partnerships or PATH, PA TIP, Ready to Succeed. I strongly encourage that students look into those because they have very unique criteria that might fit the bill for you, either now or when you're in school. And finally, with or without scholarships, loans are probably in students and unfortunately, probably parents, maybe. And so just keep in mind, there's 2 types of loans when you're looking at education. One type on the left-hand side would be federal loans for the students, federal loans for the parents. Those are called PLUS, parent loans for undergraduate students. And then on the right side, there are private loans, which have nothing to do with the federal or state government. They're simply made by lending organizations. It could be the credit union in your area. It could be PNC, Citibank, Sallie Mae, Wells Fargo, and there's a lot of them. They're just private loans made like any other loan, but for the purpose of education. We do encourage that students exhaust their federal loan options simply because they don't require, the federal loans for students don't require a cosigner, and most traditional students wouldn't be able to get one without a cosigner, so they don't need a cosigner for Fed loans. And there's also a number of repayment plans for federal student loans. PHEAA makes available a program called PA Forward. I'm not going to go at length about this program, but I will tell you, if you go to PHEAA.org, there's information about PA Forward right up front. It is a private loan. It's just underwritten by PHEAA. The terms have been very favorable to Pennsylvania residents, but Pennsylvania residents can choose to go outside of PA to attend school. So you get the benefit of being a Pennsylvania resident, but you don't have to stay in Pennsylvania to go to school, although we sure would like you to. Real quick about loans. 54% of students, and I have the source written down here, and I'm afraid to access it or I'll lose you, but 54% of students in a really well-known survey accepted their loans without first estimating their monthly payment of those loans. If you ask most college students right now, they have no idea what their loan balances are. Well, if you don't know what it is, you don't then know how to prepare to pay for it. We really don't want that to happen to students because students are in debt to such a high extent. Many of them are delaying major milestones. That means marrying, the love of your life and starting a family, maybe wanting to buy a home and moving out from mom and dad, or even moving just to find improved career opportunities. So all of these things just sort of stymie young people, and we really don't want that to happen. There's also a really good website called My Smart Borrowing that would allow students to see what they could possibly make in their field, which would give them an idea what they should possibly spend to get into that field in terms of education. And then what would they have to borrow, and what's the impact of that borrowing? So I think you all could check that out. And finally, I would just say use your resources. Studentaid.gov is now the one central place that the federal government places everything that's related to financial aid. So the FAFSA is there, the IDs to sign the FAFSA, et cetera. PHEAA.org is not a fun website, but it's a very good one in terms of information. And I would tell students to look around and look at your trusted advisors. That just gives you a screenshot of PHEAA.org. I would also mention that on that screenshot, you see that we have just around the bottom, financial aid has gone virtual. We also offer a number of webinars, and those are recorded. So families can simply go to PHEAA.org to find those. And that's, again, is my contact information. This slide includes my phone number. So families, you're welcome to email me or give me a call or ask your counselors, because I do work in your counties in the surrounding area. And your high school counselors would know how to get in touch with me. If there's anything I can do, I'd be happy to help. And I did take up a lot of time, Amy. I apologize for that. I hope it was worthwhile. So I'm going to stop sharing.
All right. All right. Well, thank
And
you,
thank you.
Marion. That was some great information, and I'm sure that the parents and the students got a lot out of that.
Good.
Does anybody at this time have a question for Marion before we move on?
Are you done?
Okay. All right. So I'm going to move on. Next, we have Chris Cronenwetter from the Elk County Community Foundation. And I am going to share a screen that she. All right. Chris, are you there?
I'm here.
Okay.
I'll introduce myself. I'm Chris Cronenwetter. I'm the scholarship manager for Elk and McKean County's Community Foundations. What Amy has up there now is our webpage, and that's one of the most important things for you to know where it is. We work with St. Mary's Area School District, Elk County Catholic, Ridgeway, Johnsonburg, Cameron County, Kane, Brockway, Austin, Coudersport, DuBois, Bradford, Ottawa, Eldred, Port Allegheny, and Smethport. And we have about 144 different scholarships. So obviously I'm not going to go through all of them. What you need to do is when you get to this webpage, and Amy, I don't know, I'm on the 3 pictures are on the far right side. Can they be moved to the top or to the bottom or something? Because it's blocked, I can't really see it.
You can't see it when I'm sharing the screen?
I can see the screen, but on the right where the drop-down menu comes up,
Yeah.
so I can point that out to the students.
Yep. Can you see it now?
No, all my pictures are on the right side. I don't know where everybody.
Oh, you'll have, that's on your end. You would have to move those if you wanted to see it.
I can just grab them, okay. Okay, there I go. Okay, now one thing, this is a new webpage. Our webpage crashed, about 3 months ago and had to be totally rebuilt. One of the things with the webpage, if you're on a computer, up where it says Elk County Community Foundation, or on the other one where it says McKean County Community Foundation, you would see a line where it says home and information, et cetera, and then there's a spot that says scholarships. If you're desktop, you can look at the scholarships. If you have what Amy's looking at now, there's 3 little black lines. Amy, if you just click on that, and it should open up.
Mine's opened up, but you can't see it?
Yeah, scroll down a little bit. And right where it says scholarships, it says information for students. If you click on information for students, and then scroll down, this is a listing of all the different schools just in Elk County, including at the bottom, and it's a college students, graduate students, non-traditional vocational students. You just, if you click on any one of them, Amy. Okay, you see at the top, there's a whole group of icons, and it says engineering, music, nursing, graduate, whatever. Those are the icons you're going to look at. Like the first one is a Jordan Adams Memorial Scholarship, and that's a general scholarship. Now that one particular scholarship, you'll see it says more information. Just click on that button. It tells you about the scholarship. This one just happens to be for students that are in St. Mary's area swim team, or if there's another school in Elk County that swims with the St. Mary's area, they can apply for it. And if you scroll down a little bit, you click on click here for application. And that's the application for that one particular scholarship. This is the easiest way. The main reason we did this is because of COVID last year. We had our graduate level courses or scholarships online, but we didn't have the high school ones. But once COVID shut down and the students couldn't get into the schools, they couldn't get the applications, they couldn't fill them out. So we decided we'd put everything online because schools are coming and going with attendance. This way they can go to the application, fill it out. This is fillable, so they can fill it out online. If you don't want to fill it out online, you're welcome to print it out and fill it out that way, but just print neatly, because sometimes when students fill in email addresses, if you don't give us the proper email address, we really can't keep track of you. And so we need active email addresses, and we also need them so we can read them. And the first 2 pages, this is just general information about each particular scholarship. The second and third pages are information we need, just your names, address, etc. And on the last page, you go down, keep going to the third page. This is where they have, this one doesn't ask for a lot of financial information, but there's another one that does ask for a little bit more. They might ask you what your contributions like, and it includes what your college, like Marion said, it'll ask you what the college package is. If for some reason these applications are due on March 1st, if you don't have the award from the college yet, you can let us know, but right in there, just keep us the information. Now this particular one, it says about generating an essay and about why and how the swim and dive team was important to your personal growth and possibly help you overcome any adversity in your life. Now, they're all similar, but they're different. Unfortunately, some students make the mistake and they write one essay like Marion said, and they submit it for everybody. Well, if a donor reads it and it doesn't answer their question, they're going to toss it out right away. So the essays are very important, and the majority of our scholarships do require essays. There's a new one this year that came out that the donor actually said, if you won $100,000, how would you spend it? So it's a different type of an essay, but everyone's a little bit different. Like I stated, the foundation started in 2000, and since then we've given out $2 million in scholarships through the Elk-Cameron County, or Elk-Cameron and McKean counties. Now McKean just came on board a couple of years ago, so they're not as big as Elk right now, but it's the same type of a web page. You can go in and look at your district, and then it lists all the different scholarships that are available in your district. If you're a college student, because I think Amy told me there was somebody coming from La Roche College, there are a few scholarships for college students, but you have to check them out. Most of the college student applications are in the Elk County area, because when somebody offers their scholarship, they make the criteria up. They determine if they want to include vocational, they want it just for a 4-year, if they want it for a nursing degree, or if they want it for engineering. Some parents have gotten in touch with us, well, why don't they have a scholarship that's for such and such? But we don't make that decision. The donor makes that decision, and the donors are individuals, businesses, and organizations. Like Marion said, the Rotary Club in almost every county has done a scholarship. We have a music one that's for 5 or 6 counties, including the northern part, and it could be for high school or for college. It's called the Inez or Ole Bull scholarships. And those scholarships are worth about $2,000 each. The majority of our scholarships start at $500, but last year, one of the donors added one for Elk County that was a $20,000 scholarship, $5,000 a year for 4 years. Now, that's considered a multi-year scholarship. With those, most of them have a criteria of a grade point average. They might say you have to have a 3.0. So if you get through your first semester and you're supposed to get the second installment, if you don't maintain the 3.0 or whatever they determine, you will not get that award. And each one, they'll be determined that if you didn't make it this year, Paula Eddy, who is our executive director, you need to call her. She'll check with the donor. They may said, okay, we'll give you one more semester. If you don't make the grade, then you could lose that scholarship. So continuing on through the years is very, very, very important. The scholarships, the winners are selected through sometimes the donors, sometimes the school make recommendation, and like a lot of the medical scholarships, we give them to a hospital committee that reviews all of them and goes through them, and they don't know the students. So your essay is how you sell yourself. Just don't write something down like, I really enjoy going to school and I can do better if I go to college. Sell yourself. Give them something that they can look at and say, well, this is a quality student. A lot of times those essays is what sells the student in receiving the scholarship. Last year, we awarded $225,000 to 243 students, and we had 32 what I refer to as multi-year scholarship winners. That's the ones that win it in their senior year in high school, and they have the 4 years that they can continue to get that scholarship. Also, when we talked about PHEAA and PATH, the Community Foundation is part of the PHEAA PATH program. And if you're a student that you received a scholarship through us, either it's Elk or McKean County, you can also, your name will be submitted to PHEAA. If you're going to a Pennsylvania school, and an additional $2,500 could be awarded to you in your scholarship. We don't make the selection. Paula submits the names of the students that are going to Pennsylvania schools. PHEAA looks at all the criteria. You have to have gotten some kind of a grant from PHEAA, and then you might get the matching funds. Last year, we matched 50 extra students for an additional $43,000. The most important thing to do is go on that website that Amy was just showing you. It's www.elkcountyfoundation.org or www.mckeancountyfoundation.org. Now, on most of the applications, on the bottom, it's going to say where you return it to. Most of them that are high schools are returned to the high school guidance office. Most of the post-secondary ones are returned directly to the Community Foundation. And we pass them on to whoever's going to review them. Like the one scholarship, we email everything to Georgia, because that's where the donor is back there to make the recommendation. Now, there's a couple that have special designations, like the Gloria Anderson Scholarship. It's mailed directly to a house of the person that brings a committee together to review it. So you have to read the applications very, very closely. Just don't assume it goes back to the guidance office. Just read. You can figure out those applications. All the applications are due to us due to your guidance office by March 1st, which is the high school ones. All the college level ones are due to our foundation by March 1st so that we can get them out, which is they're all organized. They're either emailed or scanned to the donors. Donors make the selection. They get the information back to us. After we get everything back, then we have another meeting in April where we pull in the Community Foundation Scholarship Board, and they make the final determinations, and then the awards are given out usually at your graduations or award ceremonies. Of course, last year was totally different. Community service is also key. Of course, it's a little bit too late now if you haven't done anything through high school, but if you have younger brothers or sisters and they're in 9th grade, tell them to get involved in the community and the school, whether it be church or it be Boy Scouts or Girl Scouts or the food banks or whatever. You need to be involved. A lot of the donors look for that information. My email address is scholarships@elkcountyfoundation.org. And all that information will be on these web pages. So like I said, I'm not going to go over all these scholarships because you need to look at them and see what works for you. But I'll gladly answer any questions in case I missed them in going through my presentation.
Can you only go under the county that you're listed on?
Well, your school district would be underneath that county. So if you go to McKean County, there should be a spot for Otto Eldred. There is one spot for Bradford. There's one spot for Kane. Those are our scholarships are the only ones that you can do that with. Now, if you have like the ones that Marion was talking about, those are national or state ones. We don't handle those. And schools have their own scholarships too that we don't have either. But the ones that are there are all the foundation scholarships.
So like we live in Cameron County and go to Cameron County, so we would have to go to the Cameron County Park.
Now, one of the scholarships that if anybody's going to be an EMT or a paramedic, it's a short-term program. It's the person the family that wrote it is for Gibby Burek. And they would prefer somebody that's going for that degree. They will look at other ones. But anybody that's hearing me now, if you're going to that field, go into vocational and you'll see the Gibby Burek. If that's a field, they're going to allow anybody in our area to apply for that scholarship, EMT or paramedic. But if you're in Cameron County, just go to the Cameron County tab.
This is Jess. I have a question about, we have a lot of students like that live in Rowlett or, you know, that's in Potter County that go to Port. How does that work for them?
There are a couple of scholarships for Port Allegheny. Just click on the Port Allegheny tab. There's not a lot in Port, but there's a number of Port Allegheny tabs.
Okay, so that won't affect them even though they live in Potter County? It would
You
just,
have to go to the school that your the student is attending.
okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Sure.
I'm just going to show them again. When you go to the foundation and click and go to scholarships information for students, on the right-hand side, it lists the schools. And if you live up in the McKeon Potter area, the McKeon County Foundation will have, you know, additional schools on the right-hand side that you're not seeing tonight.
Okay, you will notice that Coudersport's listed under Elk counties and not listed under McKean County. That's because Coudersport High School scholarships started with the Elk County Community Foundation before McKean got involved, so we left it under Elk County. Same with Cameron County, they're listed on that part too on the bottom. It's the last tab. And you can also check under vocational college scholarships. I'm not sure if that Gibby Burek one is there. It might be. If not, you would be able to find it. And you see it's a schools located in it says the counties or districts of Austin, Cameron, Clearfield, Clinton, Jefferson, McKean, Potter, Tioga, and Warren. There's random scholarships like the Ruth Reed Scholarship goes into Warren. That's the only one we have that goes into Warren. Tioga and Clinton and Clearfield, those scholarships are the Ole and Inez Bull scholarships. So there's some that cross over county lines and district lines. But your guidance counselors have all this information, so they could be your first line of questions, but you can also, our number is there. You can call us or email us and we can answer your questions for you.
Now, are all these scholarships for like seniors and stuff, or can you apply for them like in your junior year?
No, if you're in high school, you have to apply in your senior year. And you'll notice some of the ones that are college ones, like there's one in Elk County, that's Michelle Campbell. It's a nursing scholarship. That's for students that are like going into their second year of nursing. And that's a very generous scholarship too. It's in the neighborhood of $1,700, but you have to have attended an Elk County school district. Again, this is the choice of the family that donated the scholarship or started the scholarship. And a lot of these scholarships are in memory of family members that have passed away. Any other questions?
All right. All right. Well, thank you, Chris. I appreciate it. Lots of good information for everyone. And, you know, I'll be sending out links and things after this. I'll send out a post email to include some links so that you guys can have access to all this stuff. Okay. So the reason I included our next speaker is because I will get calls every year from college students who finished their first or second semester and realize they just can't afford to continue where they're at and they must move back home. And so I will recommend that they look at the local colleges in the area to see if maybe they can take a few classes around a work schedule so that they can continue with their college plans. So I'm going to pass it off now to Lauren Zickafoos. She's the success specialist for the Northern PA Regional College, and she'll just talk about briefly her program in case you might find yourself in this situation.
Thanks, Amy. It's nice to see everyone or be here tonight with everyone to share NPRC. I hope that some of you have heard of us before. I'm going to go ahead and share Just a little PowerPoint. Can you see this, Amy? Is everyone
Yes.
good? Okay, perfect. So as Amy mentioned, I work for the Northern Pennsylvania Regional College. We are also referred to as NPRC. So you've maybe heard us on the radio or seen our ads in the newspaper. And as Amy mentioned, we are an affordable option that is close to home. So just a little bit of a background. Our whole mission is to provide affordable and accessible post-secondary education to the rural regions of Pennsylvania. So we actually cover 9 counties, which I'll get into a little bit further into the presentation, but we're here to eliminate barriers. They're living in a rural area. A lot of times cost is an issue, as we've talked about a lot tonight. And another thing that's an issue is transportation. For a lot of us in Elk County, we either have to travel an hour north into Bradford to go to UPB or an hour south to Du Bois. And for some people that just doesn't work with their schedule, or maybe they don't have the means to get there. So NPRC has a delivery model that is accessible for everyone. We offer 2-year associate degree programs and also workforce development trainings. So I'm going to go into a little more depth on the associate degrees, but I did want to mention some of the workforce development programs that we have. These are non-credit trainings that set you up to go directly into the workforce. And a few of them that we have in Elk-Cameron, Potter, and King counties are your CDL, commercial driver's license. We offer the 3 different classes. We have the CDA, which is the Child Development Associate. That's one of the most widely accepted childcare certificates in Pennsylvania. And then we also have different programs in powdered metal, dental assisting, medical clinical assistant, and a few other programs as well. If you're not sure you're ready to earn a degree, but you want to continue education, those are some programs that we have available. We currently offer 6 different associate degrees. Our first are Associates of Arts, and this is Liberal Studies and Social Sciences. Next, we have our Associates of Science, which is Business Administration and Criminal Justice. And our last 2 programs are Associates of Applied Sciences, and both of these programs actually have field work. So you get to go out in the workforce while you're obtaining your degree, and you get that hands-on experience, which is also great because you make connections in the community and you might meet your future employer while you're doing your field work. So our applied technology program is actually new as of this spring. We just started it last week for the spring semester, and it specializes in industrial maintenance. So anyone that might be interested in working in the manufacturing setting, you learn a lot of hands-on skills and also the core education skills, learning how to communicate, think critically, and problem solving. So it's a great degree for anyone who wants to work in manufacturing and have an option to maybe move up the ladder down the road in your career. And then last, our early childhood education. I know a few people on the call tonight were interested in this program. If you have a dream to run your own daycare one day, or maybe be a preschool teacher, this is a great program to get you started in the right direction. You can specialize in infant, toddler, or pre-kindergarten, and you're learning how to develop the curriculum for children and how to communicate with them. So this is a great program to get your feet in the door to achieve your goals. So why NPRC? As Amy mentioned, she had me come talk tonight because it is an affordable option that is close to home. So a little bit on the cost. As we've heard tonight from Marion and Chris, college is extremely expensive, and something to think about when you're deciding where to go is the cost of your entire degree. So here are just some numbers I have pulled up here. At NPRC, you can earn your entire associate degree for between $12,000 and $13,000. And as we saw from some of the numbers that Marion shared earlier tonight, some people are looking at almost $30,000 just for 1 year. And at NPRC, you can get your entire degree for less than half of that. So it's definitely something to consider. And another thing that's great about associate's degrees is you can always add on to them. So if you find out, I think I want to go on after I got my 2-year degree, I think I want to specialize in another program or another field, you can always add on, which is great. And about the accessibility, so NPRC has a very unique delivery model. We're not a traditional campus-based college, and we're also not an online college. So we have partnered with different organizations in the communities that we serve, and we use their classrooms that they already have in place, and we deliver our classes through live video technology. We use a platform called Starleaf, which is similar to Zoom that we're using right now. So our students, when we're not in a pandemic, they get to go to these sites and they're in the classroom, able to interact with their peers, raise their hand and talk to their instructors during class. We are remote right now, hoping to get back in person in the fall. And we do cover, some of the counties we cover is Elk-Cameron, Potter, and McKean, which I believe everyone on the call is from one of those 4 counties. And just some sites that I have listed on here. In Elk County, we use the Community Education Center for our classes. We use Cameron County High School and Emporium. And then some that aren't listed in McKean County, we have sites at the Maryland Horn Museum in Bradford. And I believe we have a site in the Otto Eldred High School, I believe. And then in Potter County, we have some as well. So there's lots of options. You might think, well, I live in the middle of nowhere. How is there going to be a site near me? But we are within 15 miles everywhere in the counties that we cover. So very accessible.
Mm-hmm.
And next, another barrier that a lot of students face when thinking about college is failure. I know I personally was a first-gen student and I didn't have any family members that had gone. So it was a little scary and intimidating, but NPRC is a great option because you're able to stay close to home, be familiar, in your own hometown and your community. And we're very student focused. So if you ever do feel lost or you need a little extra help or just some resources, we're here to help you connect with those tools to be successful. And again, I think this was mentioned maybe earlier, we have convenient class time. So if you are working and, cost is an issue, we have classes that are offered in the evenings and they're only Monday through Thursday. So you have long weekends to, re-energize and get ready for the work week and school week that's to come. And my role as a student success specialist, I'm essentially an advisor and community liaison. So I work with all the students from the time they apply to the time they graduate. And I'm responsible for Elk and Cameron counties. Now, if anyone was interested from McKean or Potter, I would be happy to direct you to the contact there. His name's Corey Newcomb, and he's wonderful as well. So last, just really quickly, I just want to touch on engagement activities that we have. We do a lot of different contests and we have a unique model, which sometimes can, limit us to what we can do, but we do our best to ensure that you're still getting the full college experience and, getting out in the community, volunteering, which I know Chris stressed is so important. And it truly is because it makes a big difference in what career path you might take and what options you might find down the road. And the great thing about NPRC is since we are right here in the communities, we do have a lot of connections that can really help you find your dream job right here in your hometowns. So great. That was all I had tonight. I have my contact information on here and Amy can share it as well if anyone would like to get a hold of me to discuss our programs or funding one-on-one. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Lauren. Does anybody have any questions for Lauren? Okay. It sounded like we may have had some juniors online, and I just wanted to mention about, dual enrollment. You still have another year left that you could get the cheaper costs of $60 a credit if you were interested in taking a few classes that night to help you get ahead and save some money. So I just thought I'd mention that for any juniors we have on board. So the last thing I just want to touch, I don't want to keep you here all night, but I had some parents ask me if I could include some tips on how to apply for scholarships. So I did create a few tips that I probably will just email these out, but I will show you. One of the things that you're going to need to do is create a scholarship resume. And this is kind of the first thing that you want to do because it gets you thinking about all of your activities, what you've done throughout high school, and that will help you with your essays. So it's basically, providing contact information, your objective, like where you plan to go to school, what you plan to do with your education, where you've gone to high school, and list any, advanced or college courses. Some of you are already doing some dual enrollment AP classes. Those would be helpful to list. Your extracurricular activities, you want to include inside and outside of school. However, you want to keep your leadership separately. So if you are like a student council president or a football team captain, list those separately under leadership. And because leadership is really important for these scholarship committees. So if you can divide that out and really put some emphasis on them, that will be very important. Any awards or honors that you've attained over the years. And then if you're working, you'll want to include that. But if you have no work experience, then it's going to be important that you include like some community service, what you've done, what else you have done in place of that. So these are all, so I'll attach this out there so that you have an outline of what to include on your activities resume. And then I also put together some scholarship essay tips because the scholarship essays are difficult. Students really struggle with trying to put together to answer these questions. So I put together 4 essay questions that might be on your scholarship essay. And then like in this example here, they want to know what your future goals are and how this scholarship will help you attain these goals. Include what college and major concentration you will be pursuing. So what you want to do is you want to show that you're goal oriented, and you're going to want to state your short-term and long-term goals and explain what you have done and what you plan to do to realize them. Writing down any past goals you have achieved helps communicate a track record. So think about what you've done, what you've achieved, and include those in here. And we don't always achieve our goals. So if you failed any goal in the past, include those and just show how you, persisted and got through those. That shows them that you can get through tough situations, and certainly going to college is it's tough to get through college. So that shows them that you're able to accomplish that. So that's just an example. And I have, like I said, 4 essays that you can go through. One is about service. So it's going to show you how to answer any service essays. Then I have one, it's like, tell us about yourself and why you deserve this scholarship. And that is so hard for students to do, to really kind of, put themselves out there. A lot of students have trouble with that. So I'm showing here how you can highlight your uniqueness and just some tips for that. And then the last one is leadership, as I said, is really important. So it's giving you some examples of how you can show that you are a leader through your essay. And I will, as I said, I will email those out so that you have them as some examples. So is there do you have any final questions before we end tonight? Anybody?
Mm-mm.
Okay, so
Are you able to be available as well?
yes. So I will put an email out with all these resources. You'll have my email address, my phone number. You can get a hold of me. If you have any questions, maybe later you might think, oh, I should have asked that. Just, get a hold of me and I'll help you any way I can. And I'm always here. So not just for scholarships, if down the road, you run into a pickle or you have questions, I've been through this. My daughter has been through 4 years of college, so I've been through every year. I know what to expect, and I'm a great resource, so please don't hesitate to reach out to me.
I will definitely be doing that because I'm running into issues now.
Okay. So I just wanted to mention, I'm going to be giving away 4 $50 gift cards to Amazon that you can save and use for your books or supplies when you head off to college. And you can enter those by completing a post survey that I'm going to be emailing you tomorrow. So if you enter that, fill that out, then next week I'll be pulling 4 winners for that.
Thank
So
you.
with that, I'm going to thank our guests for their presentations tonight, and thank you, students and parents, for joining us.